the correct information. No humility. People can't do that. Their egos are so big.
A lot of people
they
can't.
Can't do it.
And it's people from all walks of life. So it shouldn't be surprising that the most pig-headed people on earth, police. I
didn't get that joke. Can you say that again?
That was for his benefit.
Pig-headed. You have pig heads.
It wasn't on the pig. It was pig. Anyway, fine. So yeah, they don't teach any. What do they teach you for public relations?
I went to probably 15, 16 years ago. I was a crime analyst, so a part of that job, but I didn't really do anything in regards to public relations. I did a couple, but nothing major. I went to a 2-day public relations school. Basically, what I have spoken about in the first few minutes is make sure the information you are going to put out is accurate. If it's not accurate, don't say anything. Obviously, in an investigation, an ongoing investigation, you can't tip your hand. So you could always use the basic term, it's under investigation, and we can't release that information. And another big thing was to maintain your credibility going forward. If you make an error, whether it be a statement that is printed in the newspaper or something that is on live TV or a press conference, just admit to it. Because your credibility going forward, you're never going to be trusted. Yeah. And that's where cops are right now. And that's what this author is pointing out. You can't even trust what the cops are saying because they're lying. And then when they get caught in a lie, they at least don't apologize. If you apologize and say, I'm sorry, you're going to bring at least 50% of the people back on your side. I hope.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think there's nothing worse than somebody. And it's why they do it. It's a failing. It totally makes sense that you admit, and I've dealt with the vast majority of police spokespeople that I've talked to have been good, have been fine. If
and the ones I know, and the one that works for my former department is great.
Yeah,
they don't spin it any other way. They're not looking to stroke their own ego by always being out there and making comments. If an incident happens and they need to make a statement, they'll make the statement, and they won't make the statement until they have what they believe to be accurate information.
They've got patience. They have that mix of timeliness and patience. And I don't know if they come by it because they're trained or they come to it because they've got.
I think it's just human nature.
Skills.
There's certain things you can't train. You can't train empathy into a person. You can't train truthfulness and being honest and being compassionate. You don't go to a training for that. You either have it or you don't.
You also can't, or maybe you can train somebody not to be defensive. But again, there are some people, and they're in leadership positions. It's all about grabbing power, and they get very defensive. And those are the ones who say, "Oh, it wasn't us. It was the officials from the train."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I guess there's a little movement basically by some entity to get more cops on the trains. This was seen as fitting in that narrative. This was seen by somebody as spinning that narrative.
Oh, okay, this is why we need more cops on the train, and this is what happened, end of story, and they just walk away, drop the mic.
Yeah, and I don't know who it is, and I can't find it in the story, so it's not really worth going back to. But either way, I think you're right. If somebody admits the mistake, they admit it in a timely manner, they move on. We move on. But there are some people who just never want to admit the mistake, and they don't want to admit that it comes from their department. So enough about that.
This is a much more interesting one.
Officers charged in the death of a Georgia man shot 76 times. On Tuesday of last week, which was the 27th of October, a grand jury indicted 2 former law enforcement officers in a 2016 shooting in the Atlanta area. A man was shot 26 times. 76 times. A 26-year-old man was shot 76 times. These 2 were charged with murder and aggravated assault, burglary, making false statements in violation of oath by a public officer, according to the Associated Press. The incident was October 5th, 2016. The victim's name was Jamarian Robinson, and he was shot dozens of times by police. 76 times. Here's my question.
Okay.
In communications, one of the principles is you are communicating even when you don't know that you're communicating.
Yeah, nonverbal communication, whether body language, eye contact.
Or in this case, actions.
Actions,
What's it communicating when you shoot somebody 76 times, Nathan?
What is it communicating? That obviously there is an excessive amount of bullets that they have that they obviously do not need.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, I
hadn't thought of that, by the way.
It's not simple, but I think just to look at it from a law enforcement... No, it's just the simple conclusion here is that these two nitwits, they're just criminals. And what they did was criminal. Now, what motivated them to do that? And if you read on to the story, they believed that this individual, the deceased individual, may have pulled a gun on another cop. So one of the worst, from a cop's perspective, one of the worst things you can do to a cop is, one, pull a gun on him, threaten his life or threaten his family. And when that happens, the cop gang or the group of cops that work together or that are in the same area, state police and local community cops, if something happens, they all kind of mass together and they'll go after someone. They will seek justice, and usually 99 times out of 100, it's going to be the appropriate way. They'll track them down, they'll go in with a SWAT team, and they'll extricate them from the house and they'll make an arrest. But in this incident, they just went way beyond any scope of anyone's imagination, and they acted criminally in this one. So there's no explanation for this.
There is no explanation. It's bizarre. 76. You would think that even if you were going to shoot somebody up, you get to the low double figures and you stop. You don't go to the high double figures.
There was like a psychological phenomenon in this. It's an excited situation where...
Emotional contagion?
Yeah, and everyone gets jacked up and everyone starts shooting. And then 30 seconds later...
Yeah, everyone, we're talking about two guys, right?
There was two, but there were other officers there, but the only two that are charged.
What were the other two doing? Taking a shot every time there was a shot?
Yeah, like I said, it's beyond explanation. You can't try to explain it away. You can just go, they acted criminally and they're being charged based on the information that's being reported. They're being charged appropriately. I don't know of any law enforcement person that would try to support what they did unless some bizarre information comes out down the road. But based on the information we have, they just unloaded their guns. They were so jacked up. They had such a hatred for this individual. And whatever else was going on in their life, they just took it out on this guy for no apparent reason other than their belief he pulled a gun on one of their other brother officers.
Do you think it's violence on TV?
Video games? If that's the case, Nathan would be a well-known serial killer.
That's a good point.
If it were video games, 76 would be child's play. You'd have to get a street sweeper to clean up all the rounds.
Do you have so when you're in the police academy, you have weapons training. Do they ever say to you, if you have to, how many times, by the way, are you reloading to fire 76 bullets?
Well, assuming let's say they had a 15-round magazine. So you had 15-round magazine. So there's two guys. That's 30 rounds. You're probably talking each guy's reloading at least once, and if there's someone else on the other and that's not involved that we know right now might have throw a few rounds down range, it's at least two because each officer can shoot two magazines, which is 30 rounds. That's 60.
And are these two? Any chance that these two are taking the? I don't know if I want to say taking the fall, but so this is just a criminal event that had nothing to do with training.
Well, it turned criminal real quick.
It turned really
these two nitwits.
Okay, yeah. 76 shots.
Yeah,
wasn't there was a famous Springsteen song about the guy in New York who was shot, and it was what, 56? Maybe they were going for the record. 59 shots.
The weapons. You know something. The weapons training in law enforcement they refer to as like double tap. You shoot for center mass, and you shoot 2 rounds, and then you reassess. If you can reassess.
Two rounds is bang bang.
Yeah, bang bang.
Okay, not bang 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 bang.
No, 2 rounds is bang bang.
Okay,
1, 2, then you reassess.
So you get 2 guys, you get 4 rounds.
Yeah, if
so these guys maybe these guys are the worst shots in the history of policing.
Like I said, they just obviously it was malicious, and there was something, they had some sort of a psychotic break momentarily.
If I was his lawyer, Nathan, I would probably start off with 75 flesh wounds.
The only one that really killed him was the one to the head.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But it's very much like that New York case. Whatever it was, 59 shots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever that thing was. I should really know. The fact that it's a
that was years ago. That was like 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a long, but yeah, it was the same thing. They unloaded their guns on an individual. And like I said, it was contagious. Everyone was just in this frenzy.
It seems like it comes at the end of an altercation.
Like at the end of a high-speed chase or a foot chase.
Right.
Everyone gets out of the car, and the cops just, are all jacked up on adrenaline, and they start grabbing people, pushing them around, and things just... And when you see it on video, it looks completely insane.
Yeah.
But then when someone tries to explain their mindset of the adrenaline rush after a half-hour chase and maybe someone was killed, and then you can explain it. Not that you can support it or believe it, but you can explain why they act that way.
Can't you simply just say, the end of, and then you pick an 80s movie?
You guys ever seen Point Break? I felt like Keanu, and I just had to unload. But the difference was, I'm not Keanu Reeves, but we both used real guns on set, so it's like a Hollywood movie.
But, de-escalation training has really come to the forefront in police academies. I spoke to a few recent graduates, and they said that de-escalation training is 75% of what they go through. It's constantly grilled into their head. What can you do to not use your weapon? How can you speak to someone? What's your body language? How can you articulate what you want done in whether a domestic situation or maybe you're an armed individual in a house? How can you handle that situation so you don't have to use force? Some situations you can't. The person you're dealing with is hell-bent on injuring, whether it be a police officer or a domestic situation, their ex-wife or their ex-husband or their children, and you have to intervene. But there are many middle-of-the-road situations where if you just wait it out, if you approach it differently with a different body language, a different temperament, you might be able to de-escalate that. So that's constantly grilled into new recruits' heads nowadays, and they're trying to give them a more logical perspective on human behavior and why people act certain ways, to include themselves, why they act a certain way.
Let's talk about the emotional contagion and I don't know if we call it, but the other cop on the scene. The other cop of the scene, this comes out of Cohasset. Active bystandership for law enforcement.
Yeah, active bystander leadership for law enforcement. It's called ABLE, A-B-L-E.
Okay. Is that what they say, leadership?
Yes, it does.
I'm looking at where it says, okay. I'm looking at
Dave's hooked on phonics. He's on purple right now, which is around 5th grade reading
I'm looking
level.
at active bystandership for law enforcement.
Yeah, it was a misprint on yours.
Okay. Oh, only on mine.
I didn't correct yours.
All right. Anyway, so explain this to me.
So basically what it is, and you know something, there's not a lot that's kind of out there right now because Georgetown Law Initiative Policing Program, they developed the ABLE program. And basically what it is it's trying to teach police officers to deal with other police officers in certain situations that are going bad. A police officer that's gone rogue. For instance, Derek Shaw. All right. Yeah. If you're on that scene as another police officer and you see what he's doing, you see that everything he's doing, it's against policy, it's against common sense, it's bordering on, obviously it turned out to be criminal, but maybe at minute 3 it wasn't criminal because they were trying to control him, but at minute 7, 8, or 9, when you're still, once you already have him under control and you're still using that force, that's where the ABLE program says, hey, whoa, someone has to step up. Someone has to use common sense. Someone has to be able to see what's going on and talk the other officer down off the ledge because now he's acting criminally. So, like I said, there's not a lot of information out there because obviously it's proprietary and they don't want to let the information out. But just as a cop, it's like in any profession. Cops will protect cops. Football players, what's